So per usual, we are going to hop into all of our topics. It's an analysis show. We don't have an additional player guest like we did for a few weeks there, but we do have a plethora of topics, and we are, 8 days from the draft. So draft stuff and whatnot. So here we go. The first question I'm going to pose to, let's see, Sally. Stephen Weatherly is theorized to be the defensive end opposite Danielle Hunter, and one name that went off the board since we last chatted was Jadeveon Clowney. Not that he was ever realistic to come to the team, but he was mysteriously out there, and it would have been badass to pair him with Hunter. If the money lined up, it did not. Probably didn't even pick up the phone for it. But it'll give us a clue into the draft plans of the Vikings if we know what Weatherly's future is. So I'm going to ask everybody and start with Sally. Do you think Stephen Weatherly is the starting right defensive end for the 2021 team?
Right now, I don't see any other way. Even if they draft somebody, it's not going to be unless they trade up, it's going to be in the 3rd round or the 4th round. So I don't know if that guy's going to be a starter week 1, like a Danielle Hunter, maybe. But for right now, I think he is going to be. Last year he was injured after 9 games, I think. So he missed the end of the season. Maybe he'll improve.
Yeah, he did pretty well in reserve fashion for Everson Griffin in 2018. So we'll have to see if we can rekindle that. Shelby, do you think Weatherly starts week 1 on the defensive line?
I honestly think he's a good fit. He's only 27. I think that he'll pair with Hunter really well. Obviously, Clowney would have been a great fit, but for right now, we kind of have to work with what we have. And he's been I'm pretty sure he's been practicing right and left defensive end right now to see. So he's kind of working both sides. So I think that he'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, the excitement that he showed when he returned home, so to speak, led me to believe that it was maybe more than just a 3rd down rushing role. Ron, what do you think? Is Weatherly the starting defensive end?
I think he is, and I think the way that spot will be used is going to be just a very fluid situation with obviously Wanham getting some mix in there as well. Plus, I think that they will draft someone at some point that'll be a developmental player. So, it's not that Weatherly is a below average player. He's probably, average. If there's a replace or a wins above replacement metric, he'd probably be right at that 0, slightly above. But I think with the additions in the middle that will be there, he'll be effective in that role. But also, again, you'll see Wanham probably as the primary pass rusher on that side in nickel situations. So.
Okay, Bryant, there are 2 Hurricanes conveniently that are edge rushers that will go off the board probably in the 1st round, definitely by the middle of the 2nd round. And those dudes are named Gregory, Rousseau, and Jalen Phillips. So I want to know, A, do you know either one of them? And B, do you think one of them would be suitable for the Vikings?
Yeah, well, I know both of them because of my time being down at the University of Miami and trying to help the O-line. I wish they would come, I wish they were able to snag at least one of them.
Yeah.
Like Minnesota doesn't get too many Hurricanes up there. And I think they would do a good job up there and make an impact right away.
Is it somewhat realistic that we could get one of those guys on if they put on a purple helmet?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I definitely could reach out to either one of those guys and have them come on as a guest.
Okay.
If they get chosen as the Vikings.
Oh, that's kind of our final frontier, our holy grail right now is a current player. We don't have a whole lot of inroads there. I thought for a while we'd be able to get Dalvin Cook, but then that one kind of cooled off. But it's good to know. We that's something to get excited for on draft night. I somehow disagree with the group. In my heart of hearts, after too much thinking, way too much obsessive thinking about this, I think that the first pick will be an edge rusher. And I think we'll trade back on brand per usual. About 6-7 spots, and then we'll get one of those dudes or the Michigan guy pay. And it's not that I don't think it would work, the defense as it is right now, but the pass rush side of things is below the standard that Zimmer usually tolerates, because Dalvin Tomlinson is, a nose tackle sort of with the Giants. And I don't think that he's going to generate gobs of pressure like Sheldon Richardson, I perceive, did in 2018. So I really think this will be an edge rusher, even though the knee is probably more steered toward offensive line. Ron, there was an NFL.com article last week that power ranked general managers, and I thought that was supremely interesting because I don't see a whole lot of those. It's always a mystery to me how GMs are ranked or perceived in the general community. And our guy, Mr. Spielman, in terms of drafting wherewithal, was ranked 6th out of all 32. And like 10 of them were considered like newbies, so they were disqualified from being ranked. But do you think that's fair? Top 6. He was number 6.
I do think it's fair, and if not even higher. I mean, I didn't look at the article, so I can't say who was ahead of him. But if you look, obviously he has misses, like every GM does. Laquan Treadwell stands out, among some others. But if you look at the way he's developed or drafted and developed talent in those middle rounds, especially looking at the defensive line. But we haven't spent draft capital on a D lineman for, like, I think McKinney said, like Udeza or Rasmus James was the last one. So but we seemingly always have, like, whether it's Robinson into Griffin, now into Hunter, there's always someone who is an impact starter. So if you take everything into account, even Diggs was his draft pick, and that's a 5th round pick. So it's hard. I'm hard pressed to find people who are better at drafting players. Now, there obviously is more to the GM position than just finding and acquiring talent. So there's other faults that he may have, whether it's, salary related or whatnot, or even just personnel retention. But you can't say that he hasn't done a great job in the draft.
Okay. So Shelby, we don't know too much about you and your fandom. Are you a Spielman girl?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that he's done a great job, especially in the most recent years with Jefferson, Hunter, Cook, even Barr back then. I think that he has a good time of finding talent. And then what I realized is a lot of guys like playing for him. And he seems to develop and see things that not a lot of people see. So I personally think that he's doing a good job.
Okay. On Spielman, just like most of the Vikings stuff, we watch every snap, Vikings football, see every tweet, and I think that we perceive his misses, like Ron was talking about with Treadwell and some of the injury ones, like Sharif Floyd, as like, how could he do this? Like as if he's the only general manager that happens to. So I think that we perceive him through a more scrutinizing lens. And I think on the whole that he is a apt general manager. And I also don't think that he's necessarily on the hot seat. I will agree with everybody in the world that thinks Zimmer and Cousins, maybe not hot seat, but this is certainly a pivotal year for both of those men. Those two are indeed. But I think Spielman's body of work speaks for itself, and I think he's safer than those two if this season were to go pear-shaped. So, Bryant, you are the only one on this show tonight that has met or knows Rick Spielman. And outside of the weird interaction where the Vikings called your mom to try to get you to resign, what is your opinion of Spielman?
I think he does a pretty decent job. Like, I don't think he's bad. I just think that some of his ways are still old school, and I feel like he has to try to transition over to a newer.
Spielman's?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can transfer over a little bit to the newer way of how these players are.
Okay.
And don't always take the old school mentality on some things. But other than that, I think it's pretty decent.
Fair enough. All right, Sally. What is your pulse on Rick Spielman as the general manager of the football team?
Well, the list was definitely interesting. Who was they had the Packers GM at 13, which I thought was kind of weird because he hasn't even been around very long. But anyway, so the list was interesting. It did only go back to 2015, to be fair, but I think that's probably because if you sucked at your job in 2015 or before, you're probably not still employed. But the list also, so it had his best draft pick in that article as Justin Jefferson. I don't necessarily agree with that. Obviously, we all saw how talented Justin Jefferson is, and I'm sure we'll continue to only build off of that. But he's only been, on the roster for 1 year. I feel like that's almost a slight to Spielman to say that's your best pick, especially since he also kind of fell to him. I think he, like Ron was saying, he deserves more credit for what he has done in those later rounds. We mentioned Daniil Hunter in the 3rd round. I think that's a really good example of that. And then Diggs in the 5th. I know there's obviously less risk associated once you get to the 5th round. But especially if you think about how he built that into then another 1st round pick, which became Justin Jefferson and picks after that. I do agree that he shines better in those later rounds, especially when he picks up a bunch of extra picks. It really improves your odds. So
Get a lot of chances at it. You're bound to hit on one. So, so who were in the top 5? Because like I said, I didn't read it, but
I wrote this too. Sydney.
I have it.
Okay.
If you don't.
Because like without thinking, like my guess would be like they'd probably put like the Seahawks in there, which is just asinine because of it. And the reason why I think that they would be in there is because of Russell Wilson. But if you look at the rest of their draft, like whether it's Bruce Irvin or they took an offensive lineman that just sucked, like they haven't hit in the 1st round anything, but one middle round pick that becomes a Hall of Fame talent may skew that number the way that it's looked at. So, and also Sally, to your point with the Packers, their draft classes look better because they have Rodgers. So all those years with Ted Thompson, like they never had good draft
But
classes.
these are all 2015 and before, so those are actually not being considered.
Okay.
But still, I mean, they had Jordan Love last year. How can you say that they're 13? Like we haven't seen yet if that.
And they don't sign free agents.
Right.
So it was Tampa, New Orleans, and who else?
The Bills.
Oh yeah, Brandon
The
Beane.
Buccaneers, and the Steelers, and the Colts were number 1.
Yeah.
Now, what have the Bills really done in the draft that would warrant them up there? Like, I mean, they got Diggs from us.
The linebackers.
They said Josh Allen is their best pick.
But he's a number 7 overall pick, so he should be good.
Tre'Davious White.
And the worst pick is Zay Jones, they say. Round 2, 2017.
Okay.
And
Hey,
then,
they say the best and the worst picks?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Who else do you want some tea on? I got it right here.
Who did they say for the Ravens?
For the Ravens, he does that. Their GM.
Well, Lamar Jackson's got to be their best because of you get an MVP in the last pick of the 1st round. But
the Ravens are ranked 17, supposedly. Best pick, J.K. Dobbins, round 2, 2020. Worst pick, NA.
This is after Newsom.
Well, they put NA. They were being nice.
Yeah, this is he almost should be considered the noobs category because this is life after Newsom.
Right. They said no one knew. I guess they meant a year younger. So yeah, like that's not fair. So this power rankings is kind of crap in my opinion. But
on the Vikings side, we need to also mention Kendricks in the 2nd round, Hitman. Trading back into the 1st round and then finding Thielen from nowhere. Those are
even the guys that aren't here, whether it's Trey Waynes or anything, like those guys had good productive careers here. And again, like the Laquan Treadwell miss, like I'd put Diggs as the best pick that Spielman had because one of where he was taken in the 5th round, but also not being thick-headed and thinking that Treadwell, or I guess Diggs was taken before Treadwell, but I mean, that to me, just you get that good of a talent, whether or not he's on the team, that still counts as a Spielman draft.
Yeah.
So
the next thing, and I was asked about this on Sioux Falls ESPN radio today. It's kind of a softball question, so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't off base here. The Vikings were forecasted by odds makers to win 8.5 games, which gives them an ugly 8-9 record or 9-8 if you're optimistic. Let's see, Shelby, do you think 8.5 wins? What does that do for you for the Vikings? Is that way too high, way too low, nothing? What?
I think that's low. I mean, I like to think I'm a pretty optimistic person when it comes to the Vikings, but there were so many games this year that were so close against really good competitors. The second that we fix our offensive line and give Kirk more time, and once we get all those injured people back, like Barr, Danielle Hunter, Dalvin, like all those people, I think that we have more than enough chance to have at least 10 games, in my opinion.
Yeah. Sally, what say you on 8.5 wins?
All right. Well, I'm actually not happy with this answer because it's like a pet peeve of mine when everyone's like 8-8, now 8-9, but I looked at each game individually earlier and I've got 8-9. So
yuck.
I mean, some of them are a toss up. Like I would say Cowboys is a toss up. Panthers is a toss up. But I mean,
Is it just that tough of a schedule, or you're just not as high as the rest of the folks here are?
Well, so far, not much has changed from 7 and 9, right? So, I mean,
Except
where are
for
you
In a
Lowe.
way,
finding?
it has, because just getting healthy on defense, the
We still
20
don't know if
what
Daniil is healthy.
That's what I'm saying.
even without Daniil, like, yes, and obviously he's a difference maker. You're getting, your linebacking core back, obviously with Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson, that'll help with the running game. So I
But the
think
running
just
game wasn't an issue.
well, that's because that's true
So,
against the Saints, with 7 rushing touchdowns. But no, it's I mean to kind of to your point, it's not well for me. It's always when I look at who we play and everything, it's always like, oh, it's a tough schedule. But what the schedule looks like now versus what it's going to look like week 3, and Bryant, I'm sure you can attest to it. When you look at the schedule that comes out, it's like who your opponents are, but what a team looks like week 3 is going to be different. There's going to be some injury. There's going to be something that happens, or a team like for in our case for the 2010 year, the dome collapses and like just put the cherry on the top of everything. You don't expect to see that. So teams at the top are going to fall, and some teams at the bottom are going to rise up as well. So, but yeah, to your interview with ESPN in Sioux Falls, when I was listening and I heard the 8.5, and you had said Vegas is never wrong on these type of things, and I feel like season over unders, they're usually pretty far off. It's
Are they?
it seems like it because they always range it in that 7 to 9, and
Yeah.
then with the top teams at like 10 or 11, but just to probably get the action going. But
Sure.
I mean, I'd be on the optimistic side and think that 9 wins is like being over 500. If 9 wins is the goal, I think that's very attainable, regardless of who the opponents are.
Okay. Bryant, 8.5 wins for the Vikings. Too high or too low?
That's too low.
Yeah.
It definitely should be like at least a 10 win season, at least. But 8, that's not too far from the record last season.
No, not especially if you're adding another game. It's basically
Right,
basically a
-17,
wash.
yeah.
Well, Sally, we would see a brand new team if it's 8 and 9. I think the coach would assuredly be gone, and the quarterback would be probably phased out. And I don't know. I don't know if it'd be a complete rebuild. But yeah, 8 and 9, or maybe even a 9 and 8. Is going to be a catalyst to change, whether we like it or not. So let's.
well, what's yours?
What's that?
What's your prediction?
Well, so to understand how the Vegas does it, I would say it would be more fair to do 9.5, based on what Ron said about a return to health from like 5 significant contributors. But without seeing the draft, I would probably peg this team at 11-6, because I do trust the defense to come roaring back. I think me included for a while, I think we're way too jaded about how poor the defense got quickly, and we forgot what the bedrock of the team is. And it's not like they all scattered and went elsewhere. We litigated that last year when that happened with Linval and Everson and Xavier and the rest of the cornerbacks that left. But I don't feel that vibe this year, that it's this starting from scratch. It's a return to normalcy and then enhancements with Patrick Peterson and Tomlinson. So I put a lot of stock in the defense. To me, it's going to give me warm fuzzies that it's back and it actually effing tackles.
And like with
11.
Everyone getting back, like whether or not Daniil is there week 1, our D line at every position this year is better than what we had out there last year.
Yeah.
So that alone, you look at our with Dantzler in his second year, and obviously the last half of the year he was pretty dominant. You now add Patrick Peterson into that mix. So whether or not Xavier Woods is worse than Anthony Harris, or if he's somehow better, our secondary is better and our linebacking core is healthy. So I think just again, the healthy bodies, assuming they stay healthy, is going to be helpful. And being able to, if we can mitigate the running game and make teams pass, I think we're equipped to be able to, if we can't get pressure, we're at least going to be in the right spot on the back end.
It'll be sad if we never have a year with Mike Zimmer where the defense is his defense, and then this good version of the offense with Dalvin Cook ripping and rolling. That's like my wet dream for that to happen, because then you're so damn close for it to be in 2017 when when Case was doing it out of his body. It's got to be there somewhere, and I think we have 1 year to find it. Say it. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the fact that this is the best offense I've seen in I don't know how long. The chemistry is crazy. We have the running game plus the passing game, 2 good receivers with Thielen, who's more experienced, and Jefferson. The fact that we went from having a top 10 defense to what we witnessed this year, if we could even get it to half of what it was in 2017, 2018, I think that we have a crazy chance to be up there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm banking on. I think that's what has to happen. Bryant, so there is a guy in the draft named Penei Sewell. I think that's the right pronunciation. And he's forecasted to be the best left tackle in the draft. You know a little something about that. His stock is falling a little bit because of this quarterback just scurry to the not the finish line, but the starting line to get quarterbacks. So he might fall a bit. And there is a theory that suggests the Vikings could trade up about 6 spots to grab him. Would you support, or what would you give up via trade to land a left tackle of the future?
Let me understand his stock falling because of a quarterback. What?
He's a left tackle, and there are about 5 quarterbacks that are supposed to be picked, which shoots his stock down because teams are stretching for quarterbacks. So right. Would you sell a little bit of draft capital to get a bona fide left tackle?
I would, because I feel like there's somebody that you could potentially have for years to come, you know? So, yeah. And that's a weakness on the team right now. So you might as well address it if you have the opportunity.
Yeah. If the plan is not to move Ezra Cleveland over to left tackle to his natural organic spot, then we don't have anything. It's Rashad Hill, and you hope that he became a starter somehow, this summer. And maybe he will be, but the way that we usually do things on that front, the offensive line, it seems like it's piecemealed. What would you give up, Sally, to get, if anything, Penei Sewell?
I was thinking they should throw in one of those 3rd round picks.
You think that'd be enough?
I honestly, we have, how many 5ths do we have?
We have 5 fourths. Is it 5 or 4? Yeah.
I don't know. I wrote down 5, but maybe a 3rd and a 4th, and then trade up the 1st. I don't know. I mean, it could happen. That's a position we've needed fixed for a really long time. So it would be nice to try again.
Yeah. And Reef did okay. Reef was a good left tackle. But the smoke that surrounds Sewell is supposed to be great left tackle. And in theory, he could not work out, but the scouting reports would have to be wickedly wrong. Ron, what would you give up for Sewell? Sorry. So what'd you say?
Matt Khalil.
Hey, he was good for a year, damn it.
Yeah.
I mean the reports.
Oh yeah, true. Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think the draft capital to move up is always going to be an issue. If we have to touch into next year's 1st or 2nd, absolutely not. But I think the big key will be if we see 5 quarterbacks go in the top 8, that Broncos spot at 9 is going to be a huge pivot spot, because with the relationship with Patton, however it's said, with his relationship, obviously it seems like they want Micah Parsons if no quarterback is there. So if all 5 quarterbacks are gone and Parsons is on the board, Parsons will be available at 14. So that will be something where, like Sally said, the 3rd and the 4th, along with the 1st, should be able to move up. And so even whether or not it's Sewell, if it's Rashawn Slater, I'm fully on board for that as well. I actually think Slater, if you get him and he's at left guard and then have Cleveland play left tackle, I think you shore up that left side pretty good. So
okay. For the listeners, I want to call out, there are some of you that want to be done with Kirk Cousins and either groom a Trey Lance or start him right away somehow, which won't happen because Kirk is the quarterback for 2021. But what Ron said about the Broncos spot, that is the spot to watch. If Mac Jones, who some people like, which I don't get, especially that high, or Trey Lance, if they slide past the Broncos, then it is actually realistic that Lance or Jones will go all the way to the Vikings, because the way the board falls with the Chargers, Eagles, not Panthers. 2 of the teams there, the Cowboys, they're not quarterback hungry, and it would be odd for them to draft a quarterback, especially the Eagles with Hurts, even though stranger things have happened. So if you want a quarterback that's not named Kirk, you want Lance or Jones to be available after the 9th pick, because then they're probably going to fall all the way to the Minnesota, and it could be a Rodgers-like fall. Let's see here. Shelby, do you want, or here's the scenarios for left tackle. We can draft one like Darasaw organically at 14. He probably will be there. Or we can say the heck with it. We'll get one in the later rounds and then explore a free agent like Eric Fisher. Or we can trade up for Sewell. Which one of those do you support?
I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, obviously a lot of people don't like Kirk, but my constant argument for him is our offensive line is trash. And he's definitely the best offensive lineman in the draft. So I personally would probably trade up for him. Like most of you guys said, a 3rd round pick for sure. Maybe even a 2nd round in next year. I'm kind of iffy on that one, but the main issue for the last couple of years has been our offensive line. And I think that if the talk is really that about him, I would prefer taking the risk on that rather than waiting for a later round and kind of, rolling the dice.
Okay. We're going to talk about trading the 2nd rounder in about 5 minutes when the Orlando Brown topic comes up. I should have asked this question when we were talking about Spielman, but I got out of order. Sally, who do you consider Spielman's busts?
I'm going to go with Cordero Patterson being the biggest one. And the reason for that, I'm sorry?
3 for 1?
4 for 1.
Oh, 4 for 1.
It's 3 for 1, but 4 for 1. The reason for that being, obviously we know he's a great kick returner, but as far as being drafted 29th overall to be a wide receiver, that just certainly did not work out. In his 2nd season, he was demoted to 4th on the depth chart. 3rd season, 5th on the depth chart. So, and I hate to say it because we really do miss him in the kick game, but that's just not a 1st round pick, especially when you add in the picks that were traded to the Patriots, a 2nd rounder, a 3rd rounder, a 4th rounder, and a 7th.
Yeah, that was a huge haul for them. That's unbecoming of the way Spielman usually does things.
I don't know how each year you get worse though. Like you're supposed to get better.
He had.
How did he go backwards? He went
because he had Greg Jennings. They signed Greg Jennings the next year, so he had to fight with Greg for balls, and then they had Mike Wallace in 2015, I think, and then Stephon Diggs was there too. Diggs was there, so he fell behind.
So, and also, like, it sounds like, the writing on the wall being that just his depth perception, like if he needed to run an 8-yard in, like he would run it at 11 or 6, like there's never consistency. So, well, I will say kudos to him because he refined his game. He was that dynamic kick returner, became a great gunner on special teams, not what you want out of a 1st round pick, but he was able to contribute in other ways. So he wasn't, so for me, I'd say Treadwell's the biggest bust because he 1 catch for 11 yards first season. And then, he didn't really do much after that. So, and Michael Thomas went after him. So say what you want about Slant Boy, but he would have been a much better pick. So
I think this is in direct contradiction to Sally. I think that Treadwell is the only bust. I can't call Patterson a bust because he's like probably 3 or 4 kick return touchdowns away from being a Hall of Fame candidate. And he, of course, he didn't turn into a wide receiver, but it's hard for me to say he's a bust when he's so dynamic, and he certainly wasn't ideal for the Vikings. And I also don't classify injury-prone players as busts, although emotionally they can feel that way. I think of a bust as like a Jamarcus Russell, where they flat out don't work out because they suck. And with Treadwell, I'll always look back at my foolish ass and like at the games, like, grabbing my wife's shoulder when he caught a pass. That's how excited I would be, thinking like, oh yeah, this is the one that's going to change everything. And I should, and then it was amplified when I watched Jefferson this year, like in week 3, thinking like, God, I was a moron for waiting and Treadwell to bust out like that. No pun intended. Shelby, who are the Spielman busts?
I think Christian Ponder is a big one. That was a really big reach. I get it that we needed a QB back then. That's another thing about Cousins. Back in those days, we were changing quarterbacks every year. We talked about Khalil earlier. I don't think that he was a good 1st round pick for us. Josh Robinson, Chris Cook. both D-backs that didn't work, and then Jeff Locke in the 5th round. I think that was
Yeah, that one was curious. So yeah,
but obviously dreadful.
if we slide it back to before Spielman was officially the GM, because I never understood the triangle of authority, who's making the pick.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna butt in here because
Mhm.
that's everyone's way of letting Spielman off the hook for Ponder, and I understand why. And I would, if this happened when Brad Childress was the head coach, then I would totally get it, because as we've talked about with Brad Childress, his personality, he was obviously in there. He would have picked the QB that he wanted, as he did with Tavares, right? I don't see Les Frazier going up against Rick Spielman and saying, we got to have this guy. And Ziggy, I see defaulting to Rick as well. So obviously we weren't there, but who made that choice other than Rick Spielman, thinking about those 3 in a row?
Bryant, were you
I agree.
Were you still on the fringe of the house, Bryant, during the 2011 NFL draft?
I was still there. I left during training camp.
Yeah.
But I agree with Sally, though.
Okay.
I feel like what she's saying sounds about right.
Well, then it's gospel. I mean, if your boots on the ground and you know the personality, and she has the theory that he's probably capable of.
Leslie had just just got into that position.
Yeah.
And Ziggy, it really hires everybody to operate. So he's not really in, like, he doesn't know everybody's stats and things like that. That's why he hires everybody. So it sounds about right to me.
Okay. Well,
And I will say, and
Sally wins that round if we're keeping score at home.
I mean, everyone gives him a pass for those years, and I don't think if it was Brad Childress, yes, Brad probably did make that call, but there's no way to me Les Frazier was like, been watching Christian Ponder's tape, and I really think that he's the guy.
And I will say, and this is in no way giving Spielman a pass, because Ponder was the other one that I was going to say is the ultimate bust. But if you look back to that year with the lockout or pending lockout that was coming, there was literally 0 quarterbacks on roster. So it feels like it, again, not justifying it, but it seems like it was more of a reaction. Like, well, there goes obviously Cam Newton, and then Blaine Gabbert, Jake Locker. We need someone because we don't have anyone. Tavares wasn't under contract, and they were in jeopardy of not having anyone to start a lockout season. So again, not justifying it because Ponder was.
Then they ended up with Donovan McNabb, right? Because I remember Donovan was there my first couple of days.
Yeah.
Yep. They sure did, and it didn't end well. And then
or start well.
It didn't do anything well. And then Ponder took over and showed like these little flashes of excitement, probably because we were starved for
very Mitchell Trubisky like.
And we just the first year I was still during the wretched parts of my alcoholism, getting super excited about the little things that he'd do. Not quite like I did for Treadwell, because I was no excuses. I was sober then. But with Ponder, I remember thinking, okay, there's some baby steps there. And then that was always it. He would make a couple surgical looking passes a game, and that was it. And we had to do 36 games worth of it.
And Bryant, so to the Ponder point, because you were here during that off season and everything, it sounded like at least some of the rumors from the media and stuff, when he showed up, he acted like he was the big man on campus, like he would have been at Florida State. Is that true? Did he kind of come up thinking that he knew everything, he had it all ready to kind of with that ego, or was that just blown out of proportion?
It might have been blown out of proportion a little bit. I don't really recall him doing that too much, but I do remember when Donovan came in, and then I was on there for a couple of days when he was there.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. The next thing we have, we're going to go, like I said, my hopscotch, and I apologize for the randomness of the topics. Orlando Brown is the most likely player to be traded. He is a left tackle for the Baltimore Ravens, and allegedly 6 teams have called about him. And that's really the only amount of teams that are left tackle deficient. And if you don't think the Vikings are one of those, then you're crazy. Shelby, do you think that it would be kind of like Trent Williams last year at this time? Do you think it's realistic that we will trade our pick for Orlando Brown, which would probably get us the Ravens' 27th pick, and we would have to give up a second or so? Do you think that Orlando Brown could join the Vikings?
I think that it's probably about a 75% chance. I think he wants out of Baltimore, and he'd be a nice fit for us on the line. Like I said before, protecting Cousins is the most important thing we need right now. And I think that it would be good to lead us to more of a playoff run.
Stature-wise, he is just like B-Mac. I think he's what is he, Ron? 6'8", 3.
Yeah, 6'8", 340-ish.
So he doesn't really fit the zone blocking scheme, but that doesn't really work that great. So they should be willing to change, and this would be the first seedling in doing so. So he's a mammoth of a man, just like your humble host, Bryant McKinney. Sally, do you see any benefit to trading for a guy like Orlando Brown?
Oh, absolutely. I would almost rather them trade for him than draft someone, which I know it's more of a sure thing, right? I have PTSD from Matt Khalil, so I would rather that happen, but I don't know how likely that is. It seems like there's a lot of teams interested in him, so you're probably going to have to give up a lot. And with no second round pick, I don't know. I think it's probably too risky for the Vikings to do. I think it's more likely for someone like the Jaguars, now that they have Urban Meyer and they have 11 picks. I see him being a good fit in Seattle, but they just don't really have the draft collateral to make it happen, I don't think. But yeah, I think another team is more likely.
Yeah, and then the other thing to remember, just like Trent Williams, not quite that much. We'll have to turn around and pay Orlando Brown. So keep that in the purview. McKinney, do you know anything about the Ravens tackle, Orlando Brown?
No, I mean, I probably know more about his dad.
Yeah.
But I watched him coming up. But I mean, I did watch Orlando. I watched the son as well. But why does he want to get out of Baltimore?
Oh, it's pretty simple. So right now they have Ronnie Stanley, who's an all-pro left tackle, and Stanley got hurt. And so they slid Orlando over to left tackle, his natural position. And left tackles get paid more than right tackles. And he actually tweeted in January, "I am a left tackle." Send tweet. That's all it was. So he wants to be paid like a left tackle, and the Ravens aren't going to move away from Stanley. So he is not a zone block fit, but I think you and I have talked before I've asked you, do you think that you could do your thing inside of a zone blocking scheme in your prime?
Yeah, I mean, I knew how to adjust. I've had different schemes, so I mean, I knew how to adjust to whatever they was, teaching me. And he's still young, so he can too.
24.
Yeah, so he definitely has the ability to do so.
Okay. And the whole, when you think zone blocking scheme, typically the Broncos obviously made it famous by taking those smaller, lighter offensive linemen. Ironically, a lot of the guys from the UFM, from the Gophers with Ben Hamilton and those type of guys. But when it comes to, say, a guy, if you're talented, right, it shouldn't matter if you're too big to play the position or not. As long as you're not too slow on your feet,
right. So being the zone block is about getting off the ball fast and being able to cut people off and things like that. That's all it is. I just feel like it's less for bigger guys. You would like to do a lot more colliding instead of cutting off to be able to wear down your opponent. It's just less of that.
And I think you made the point, we kind of touched on it a few weeks ago, where zone blocking really doesn't exist in passing situations, right? Because that's
pass protection now is
so. I mean, worst case scenario.
It's all pretty much run block when they're talking about zone schemes.
Right. Worst case scenario is you at least know that he's going to hold his ground in the running game, and Dalvin will do his thing. So,
absolutely.
I think it was kind of a reality check for me. So when we were so guard starved last year, entering the season, when we all knew that Elflein and Dozier wasn't a good thing, but it took the team a long time to figure it out. There was this Larry Warford, the big dude from the Saints, was available. And I thought, well, just go get him. But then I quickly realized that he's another beast, and he doesn't, as a guard, fit the zone blocking scheme. So I was thinking, God, maybe there really is something to that. So that's why I've tried to reduce my enthusiasm about these big, hulkish offensive linemen, because, like you said, Ron, they like power forward types, like Ezra Cleveland. I don't think you answered this, Ron. What about Orlando Brown? What do you think it happens or not?
I mean, I think it's a better chance that it does than it doesn't, just because I feel like we're at this stage in the game, they would have addressed the offensive line a little bit more. Going into a draft needing 2 starters on the line. If they didn't think that this was a possibility, they would make it where there's only one that they need to for sure get. So I love the idea of pick swaps, moving back, because then you can add one of those edge rushers, whether it is Rousseau or if someone else falls. But I mean, yeah, you get a guy that's in the prime of his career, left tackles, when they're good, like unless they hit a wall like Matt Khalil, like they go well into their 30s. I mean, look at Andrew Whitworth. I can't ever, yeah, and Dwayne Brown, like those guys are in their mid 30s still dominating. Bryant, you were the same at in your Super Bowl run. So whether or not he has the athleticism, like personally, I don't care about that because he's going to protect the blind side, and your right side is going to be the most athletic side in the league anyways. So if you leave Ben Cleveland at guard, so figure it out and just get a Pro Bowl player on the team. And as far as salary goes, the cap's going to jump a lot next year. So who cares?
Yeah, that's an underrated thing or under-recognized thing, that how it reduced this year by about 18 million compared to what it was supposed to be to what it will jump to with the TV deal, assuming that the pandemic recovery still goes swimming. We're talking like $40 million in difference.
Right.
And that applies to everybody. So, it's not just a Vikings thing, but it will be humongous. All right, 2 more things and then we'll get everybody out of here. Shelby, I hope you did your homework. I want to know your top 3 wants for the Vikings, assuming they stay at 14.
Okay. I am not as big into college football, so I definitely did have to do my research.
Yeah, I hear you.
We talked about the Sewell. Obviously, he's extremely good, and the importance of protecting our quarterback. Kwity Paye. These people have some weird names. Out of Michigan, he's a good edge rusher. He's a good edge rusher, and that would give us much needed pressure on opposing team's quarterback, and that's a good chance he's still going to be there. And then Azeez Ojulari.
You're going to get there.
Out of Georgia, who's another edge rusher, and I think that if we don't do Sewell, I think Vikings are going to go defense here, and that's what we need.
Okay. Oh, Sally, give me your top 3 names wants.
Well, we already talked about 2 because I heard Ron bring up Rashawn Slater, which I think would be another good option. I thought it was funny when I was reading about him that one of his marks is the T-Rex arms. And I was thinking, wow, we haven't heard that since Sharif Floyd. Because remember, that was like the pre-buzz. Are they going to get the T-Rex guy? Obviously, that poor guy.
I wasn't on Twitter then, but I wish that I was now.
I will say there, like one of the best tweets I saw in regards to that was, I think it was someone on Cape Ann, I think it was Molesky, and he said, like, they're all this talk about Sharif Floyd and his short arms, like, and he was like, well, I have long arms, and I'm pretty sure I'd make a terrible defensive tackle. So, like, I thought I got a kick out of that because,
yeah, absolutely. But then I guess if somehow, some way, a quarterback falls, like I was reading today about Justin Fields, I guess this epilepsy thing is coming up.
They're hitting him with everything.
What'd you say?
Oh, they're hitting him with everything they can find that's negative. Jeez.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know. I mean, if that'll have any effect on it, I would hope not, since that's a pretty common thing that a lot of Americans deal with, and we have a lot of resources, but crazier things have happened. So I think if one of those top guys falls for some reason, you kind of have to take it. You're not going to have an opportunity like that to draft someone, a future quarterback. And if for some reason it doesn't work out, you have trade collateral for next year. If for some reason you do want to stick with Kirk or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think you got to do it if it happens.
Okay. Bryant, I know you don't
trade back.
Sorry, Shelby, go ahead.
I was curious what they're saying about, I have epilepsy.
Oh.
So I'm curious what they're saying.
They just said he's got it.
Think that,
red flag.
Yeah, just whether or not it'll be a concern.
He's had it since he was a juvenile, since he was a kid. And I guess he hasn't had any episodes since he was young. It's been managed by medication just fine, but he's obviously had to disclose it now, meeting with teams. And so I guess the concern is, what if something changes and then it does become an issue again, or, something like that.
Right. Interesting.
Bryant, I know you don't study mock drafts like we maniacs do, but what do you just want, a bunch of Hurricanes or what?
Well, no, I do want offensive linemen. I do want some cornerbacks and maybe defensive linemen.
Okay. Gotcha. Ron, I know you got a list. Let's hear it, homie.
Well, mine's pretty simple. It's for who is going to potentially be there at 14.
Best Trenchman.
In this order, yep, it's Slater, Darrisaw, or Vera Tucker. I think any one of those three will come in and start right away. And not just start, but they'll be impact players in different ways. But I think, yeah, like we've bolstered the defense in free agency, and the offensive line is really the only weakness, and it's a weakness that, and Brian, you know better than anything, it's a weakness that could linger and affect the whole team because it starts in the trenches. And if you can't get pressure, if you can't stop pressure, like as the Chiefs showed in the Super Bowl, you can have Superman back there and you're screwed. So I'm all for protecting the offense and letting the defense kind of, figure itself out as time goes on. So
my wish list of realism in order is Rashawn Slater. I think that he is perfect for best player available and the potential to slide down. And it's really going to depend on what the Chargers do. If the Chargers win the Orlando Brown sweepstakes, in theory, we could still get Slater and I'd be just as happy. So Slater, number one. Number two is Micah Parsons because of the quarterback bonanza, he could fall too. And then he is, a bona fide freakish football player that will be Barr's replacement in 2022, if you're thinking long-term. And then third would depend on the falling of the board. But if Patrick Surtain is there, I don't think he will be because of the Cowboys' need for a cornerback, and they like bona fide names like that. Those would be my three, Surtain there. But if Trey Lance is there, even the perceived ultimate Kurt guy that I am, I would love to have him be there for the duration of Kirk's contract. And I don't care what Sally says. I like the Minnesota, the state connection. I would love that. You could market it for 12 years. And for those that are listening on just audio only, she's smiling right now, shaking her head at me. But no, I would love the Trey Lance part because we would, join the rest of the world and develop a quarterback and, pray that he doesn't shred his knee like it, happens to everybody else. But I don't
Can
think
I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I think it's funny how you said the realist in me when you said 11 wins, for one. For two.
Hey, you're committed to the show for the long haul, so when I'm right, then we can pop the Diet Mountain Dew.
For two, the Vikings don't need a marketing boost. So the home state thing drives me crazy.
Well, what's
the NFL
wrong
doesn't
with it?
need a
I think
marketing
it's more
boost.
so.
Storybook.
I think
They're
it's more the
selling
fan
out US
side.
Bank Stadium. They're selling out US Bank Stadium regardless. So I don't understand it.
How many games a year do you go to?
Every home game and at least 2 road games.
Oh, you have season tickets?
No.
Oh, you just do the single game thing?
I buy my tickets in the parking lot at StubHub and always works out.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, fair enough. So so there's no pizzazz to the fact that he was from Marshall, Minnesota in high school. That doesn't move the needle for you at all?
For me, no, but I'm not a natural Minnesotan, so I don't get you guys' obsession with like each other.
It's not just Minnesota.
Well,
it's
then
like
you wouldn't understand.
Minnesota
But
is
the rest
another
of the
level
world
with that.
doesn't work this way.
No,
the rest
we
of
claim-
the country doesn't work this way.
do you follow
We claim
basketball at
everyone-
all?
Yeah.
Well, it's like always like the Anthony Davis coming from Chicago, LeBron from Cleveland. They love to represent where they're from, and they always find their way back to their hometown. Yeah.
But see,
I
I am
Adam
one of
Thielen
those
is
where
another
like Chris Pratt was born here, so he's one of us type angle. But
yeah, I'm not hating on it.
no,
I'm just saying to pick someone for that reason.
No, absolutely not. But what I will say too is being Twin Cities born and raised, like, is the Marshall, Minnesota, is that really like that? To me, that's not necessarily one of us. Like, if he would have come to the U of M, there's a special on Sports Center this week that he thought he was going to be the quarterback at the U, and they never offered him the quarterback job, so which is obviously hilarious. But NDSU was the only college that gave him the chance to play quarterback there. So if he would have spent his college time here, it would have been like, all right, great. But like Sally said, we don't need the marketing. So even like nothing against Adam Thielen. I know he went to Mankato. Mankato State's closer, but he's where is it?
Detroit Lakes.
Detroit Lakes. Like, I mean, come on, Metro Twin Cities area.
I'm not shitting on Adam Thielen, but we would love Adam Thielen if he went to Mankato or not, right? Like
He could have went to Wisconsin and we'd love that. I mean, he's a
as
great player.
does every team, like, you know, it's just
Well,
and
maybe-
look, Adam Thielen's a great story. I'm not dismissing that at all. And if he didn't play at Mankato where the Vikings had training camp, he might very well not be in the league. Like, but that's a different story.
That's what's so interesting because I'm from Mankato and I know Adam very well. I partied with him at Mankato. And he was not really like he wasn't this like big star for the Mavericks. Like John Wolf, the quarterback, was much more of the big gun and Adam was just who he threw to. So when he kind of got drafted, or he didn't even get drafted, when he got picked up by the Vikings, it was very interesting. And he's one of those people that he is getting better with age. Like he is still coming into his talent, which is so rare. A lot of people peak in college and he just keeps on soaring. So it's a very cool story for us Mankato people.
Brian, where does your like allegiances lie? Does it lie with your being your roots in Jersey or all of Miami?
I mean, well, at this point, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, but at this point, I've spent more of my life in Miami.
Now, do you
I left Jersey at 17. I've been in Miami for like 22 years this year.
And obviously, I'm sure at the time that when you were at Miami, obviously, like the list of talent that was coming out of there was ridiculous. So you can't just go to an NFL team and say, I want this guy, this guy, this guy, because there was 30 of them making it to the league and being effective. So, yeah, like for us, with you played here in Minnesota, so I'm sure you saw guys that you played with that, you know, maybe I don't know if you cross paths with Marcus Sherrills. Like there's a perfect example of a guy who the fans love to root for him because you know small town kid, played at the U, undrafted, and always found a way on the team. So I'm sure every state has it, but it does seem like it's a little bit more amplified in Minnesota.
I think it is bigger up there because, I mean, you have guys who went to Vernon Carey was from Miami, went to University of Miami, and it wasn't even a big deal that he got drafted by the Dolphins. It was like,
it's probably because we're quote unquote flyover country. Like we're not a small market, but we're not a big market. So, you know, we take that middle market ground seriously.
Insecurity.
And yeah, we don't like being slighted in the least. So
I would also like to mention that my apparent bias on this topic is derived from LeBron James because the Cleveland selection, and I've followed LeBron since draft night 2003. And it was always so storybook for him to make that franchise relevant and then ultimately bring them a championship. So, yeah, I guess I need to do some soul searching and shed some of this.
But Cleveland needed help. Cleveland needed to sell some tickets and some jerseys.
True. Very true. All right. The last thing I got is for the females. Harrison Smith was married this last weekend, and I want to know how the hell you two ladies let him slip away. We'll start with Shelby.
You know, Smith is an interesting guy because I feel like he's kind of like Batman. Like he's so mysterious, and you know, I've sang the anthem for the Vikings a few times, and I know a couple guys on the team, and he's someone that just seems unreachable. Like even when he is like on the field and he makes it so very quiet. So I don't know how his wife found him. But I feel like unless you met him in person and just happened to win him over, I feel like he's someone that would have been hard
Bruce
to catch.
Wayne? He's Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Sally, how did Harrison escape your grip?
Well, they have been together for a long time. I think pretty much the whole time he's been on the team.
Oh,
but
have
that's
they?
not. But I mean, I kind of resent the question, to be honest, because I don't sexualize players on the team. I don't see them that way. So
Well, it was playful.
neither do I.
I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke, but as females, we get that crap a lot. So I just want to set the record straight that I don't actually see him in that way. But it was super cool to see those guys getting together at the wedding this weekend. I love seeing them just hanging out, and you know, all of their kids. That so many Vikings and even past ones like Sendejo were in his wedding was really cool. I just like to see those guys having a fun time, and you get a glimpse of their personality, and that was what I took away from it. But congrats to him.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Bryant, when the hell are you getting married?
I'm not sure.
No, nothing.
I actually spent time with my ex this weekend though, but
Oh, well, tell us
What was
more.
that?
instead of spending time over the weekend with my ex, she was in town.
Oh, how'd
She
that
lives in
go?
LA, I live in
Oh,
Miami.
snap.
So,
And that went well?
yeah, it went well.
Oh, okay.
Well, so this is this a teaser trailer for next week? You can tell us more or what?
Possibly.
He's got the little shit grin going on. So.
Yeah.
Well, you don't
I'll
wanna
ask him
jinx
off
it.
air.
You don't want to talk about it too early because, you know, then it messes everything up. So
Yeah, don't jinx it.
She might be listening. So, all right. Well, next week we're gonna do the show on a Tuesday. Hopefully, everybody can accommodate. I'm gonna go to the draft with my wife, and we leave on Wednesday night right after work. So, Shelby, we thank you for joining us. Now that you say that you sang the anthem, was that at US Bank Stadium?
I sang
No.
twice at the Dome, and then way back in the day. And then I was saying earlier, I was supposed to sing for the Vikings Chargers game this last season, but then 3 days before they told me that they had a bugle player, and they had double booked us, even though my family had flown in. So that game was actually sold out because obviously you guys know the Vikings, our away team is.
That's probably why you got booted.
Our fans love us.
They probably needed more local support than they got. So they I figured if we can
Oh,
control one,
Got the
that's
bugle guy.
It was so loud in there. Like, that's what's so funny. We ended up getting field passes, and I have a video, and it's literally just all purple. I think that there was maybe 10% Chargers fans, and even that, it's not like they were cheering. So it was a cool game to go to. I was happy I ended up not singing.
Yeah, it was. It was one of the last ass kickings that we've doled out. In fact, did we have any of those at all in 2020? Like decisive wins? I don't think so, unless I'm missing one.
yeah, I don't think so either.
All right, well then
No,
we'll
I
talk.
don't think.
Well, again, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll have you back, Shelby. And for the rest of you, we'll talk to you next week. And Skol Vikings.
Go Vikings!
All right, guys. I'll get the link up in about an hour. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Adios.
Hi, nice meeting you, Shelby.
Nice to meet you guys.
Take care.
Bye.